Before kicking in the product, I just wanted to give you a quick update of the latest announcements, which at some point, StorNext 7 with the embracement of NVMe technology is one of our latest announcements during last year, and we'll cover that presentation. But we also have extended our portfolio or enrich our portfolio with new products. So we have a brand new also NAS appliance for a specific purpose in terms of, I would say, analytic, which is called ATFS. We are also expanded our object storage portfolio with a smaller object storage technology, which is roughly starting around 200 terabyte usable, which is now available. And on top of that, all these active scale are now file locking capable, which means we can really protect the data against any type of ransomware. Last week, we also really announced our brand new disk array called the H2000. This is a pure 100% quantum product. It's complementary to the existing QXS disk that we have within our portfolio. And further, we'll be announcing much more capacity with these new technology. The latest news also was really the acquisition of CAT TV software done last year. So welcome to the team of CAT TV in Quantum, and so you will be hearing more about that. Also licensing, you will see that with the account, the sales account of our Trams or Quantum. We're remodeling more based on a software license, based on the capacity of the system, because I would say this is where the market is going, and that aligns perfectly with some of the customers' requirement. But now let's go directly in and step in with the NVMe technology. It's not a new technology. You have for sure read lots of things about it since many months or years now, so there should not be any secrets. I'm just going to recap, I would say, high level some basic facts. Is that anyway, here we are with an audience around M&E, so we know that those high-res content are growing, and they will still be to grow because the technology out there are going to go beyond the 8K, that's for sure. That means directly that you need to ingest more and more quickly all this content, as well as, of course, read that content. But that's one of the key factors. And today, I would say the traditional hard disk, if we use, I would say even the 10K HDD disk, to get those level of performance in terms of in and out would require lots of spindle across multiple disk arrays and even sometimes multiple racks, where the NVMe technology will enable to reduce the footprint, because you're moving from a, I would say, a SCSI protocol sequential access technology to an Autobahn, which can really parallel all the requests to the NVMe drive. So this is a huge benefit. You know, I think the numbers are roughly having on the same drive 60,000 queries at the same time, with a depth queue of 64,000 as well. Command which are lined up. So really it's an Autobahn compared to the traditional sequential HDD. So that means for the same level of performance requirement, you need just a few drives. So that's also a huge benefit for people within their data center to reduce the footprint. And of course, all the, I would say, green requirements around these, because these drives consume less than traditional mechanical disk. All these new contexts, of course, requires a lot of IOPS, especially around rendering, around random operation due to the random farms when the M&E environment, when you really want to work out all these frames. On top of that, you may have analytic, machine learning requirements. So we really need those high-level performance technology, and NVMe is a perfect fit on such random IOPS requirements. And of course, accessibility of these high-level content is key. So the latency must be as small as possible. How we were handling that in the past, or we still handle that, we're using, I would say, fiber channel protocol, but we know the world is moving towards, I would say, an Ethernet based protocol, because it's also more easy to deploy. It's also mostly cost efficient compared to fiber channel. And this new protocol, which is the RDMA protocol, compared to a traditional SCSI, allow us to reach those low latency access, because we take away all this complexity sometime of having all those SCSI HBAs, and you have a direct communication through the CPU directly to the drive. So really, we are reducing, simplifying the overall architecture, which directly impacts the overall cost of the solution. Those are, I would say, the four biggest bullet points. So when you are looking at the NVMe technology and how much this technology is costing, I would say the natural reaction that we have is always, and that's still the case, even if you go in to buy a USB hard drive, is look at the cost per the terabyte. Here we are in a clearly different, I would say, world, because you are really focusing on performance. So the thing that you have to measure is really look the price of the NVMe versus the performance that you are able to get. And that's really shifting everything upside down. Where HDD was the most economic, well, in that case, NVMe is the most economic and cost-effective solution to reach that level of performance. So really do that exercise when you compare the different technologies, because you will see it's pretty surprising. So keep that always this in mind. So NVMe to Quantum is not new. Even if we just announce, I would say, a more deeper integration with StorNext 7, we could already use NVMe boxes, and we have launched NVMe boxes since the last 2 years with the NVMe F2000 first, and last year the F1000. Of course, like every vendors, we had earned a lot of logos and awards during the good old time when we were able to go to the shows. So we have been awarded many times, or as well in the press, with that different type of technology being, I would say, one of the fastest hardware to do ingest, editing, and rendering with StorNext software. Now, if we look at some specification of these two products that we have out there available, as I said, the two products are really kind of different, but at the end, you will see the level of performance that we can get is very, very similar. Now, if we look at the F2000 first, that we have launched 2 years ago, really it's an available product. 2 controllers, 24 NVMe drive. They are dual ported, because you can lose one controller and you can still access globally to all the capacity of the system. Red 5 protection with parity, so you have a good storage efficiency. 3 types of flavors in terms of capacity. We'll be adding a 4th I would say capacity later on this upcoming year to increase the capacity of the box. And as you can see, the performance is quite nice just for a 2U chassis, up to 25 gigaseconds in terms of read performance. The F1000 is, I would say, a more cost-efficient solution as well. However, you can see the value is really still the high performance that you are able to get out of that box. It's a single controller box, single port, only 10 drives. The red is totally different. It's a red 10, so the efficiency is only 50%, but you still have also good, decent capacity available. If I had to do a quick analogy, it was like the F1000 is maybe a single solution to be used as maybe a daily or a few days workload, because you just promote, move, or copy the data, and we'll see that later on, to that storage, work on it or read it from it. But you don't need high redundancy, because first of all, you will see with the pooling system, the native data resides on the nearline disk. So when we say we promote, it's like a copy and paste. So if there's something going wrong, because we're in a hardware environment, and if the data is having an issue, we still have the primary copy. So maybe you lose a couple of hours or a day of work. But that's sufficient enough for maybe some of our smaller customer in post-production house. Now, if you want high availability, reliability, and more highly secure product, the F2000, as you can see, is fully redundant. So 2 different type of product, really depending on the budget and the workflow that you have to manage. So how does this all work with a StorNext 7? So within StorNext 7, or a classical StorNext, in that case, we have created what we call pool. And on the next slide, you will see pool is on top of the stripe groups. So we will consider, for example, that the NVMe, we will tag it as the fast pool, and the disk arrays, which are either a SAS or nearline SAS, can be flagged as a nearline pool. And we will be able to move around the data or copy around the data. The two possibilities are available through different type of access, through GUI, through CLI, through APIs. We can, I would say, move around the data from a job perspective. So you create a job and you move right away the data only once from one pool or to the other pool, or you can also automate the movement by a schedule base saying every day at this hour, move or copy the data from that tier to that tier with some different criterias related to that data, but we'll see that later on when I show you the GUI of the solution. So all this is there just to reduce an overall cost of the storage. Instead of having everything fully SSD or everything fully HDD, you really have an hybrid system with the flexibility to move securely the data around depending on the performance that is required at the proper time that you have to work with. So it really improves the way also the global people are working on that, I would say, unique global file system as well. And we'll see that within the use case. As I was saying, today, for people which are familiar with the StorNext architecture, and I've put the link on the slide that you will get, so there's more details about all the other type of features, but you have the LUNs, which are in the disk arrays. You aggregate one or multiple LUN into a stripe groups. That was the native way to work with StorNext file system and present those stripe groups to a file system. Now, on top of that, we have added the pool. So the pool, what it's doing is taking one or multiple stripe groups together. So that's the pool feature, and we'll see that as well on the slide, how to create a pool with the stripe groups. So as I said, after we move the data or we copy the data from one pool to the other with either CLI, as usual, with a web services API that are published on our website by the GUI. So we look at the new GUI within StorNext 7 or the policy based. So everything will be schedule based. Last time we had a question which were for you who are familiar with offline manager, this enables a Mac user and Windows user to have the visibility on their file of a little logo to understand, is it the file on the cloud tape or multiple tiers, for example, where StorNext Manager, and you have information regarding this, and you can truncate, retrieve the data just doing a click right and having those access menu. We'll be also implementing roughly, I think, April timeframe, the possibility to manage different pool through that offline manager available on Mac and Windows servers. So more to come on this. Now, how all this can be integrated into an existing or a brand new StorNext ecosystem. So either we can still use, I would say, the traditional fiber channel connectivity, because the F series are either available in 32 gig connectivity for fiber channel, but they also have, I would say, the possibility to be connected in 100 gigabit LAN connectivity. So if you are an existing customer, you might have the traditional fiber channel environment. So in that case, you just plug the F1000 or the F2000 in your SAN, and just like the existing disk arrays, I would say SAN clients can have a direct access to the storage. And if there are some SMB or LAN client, DLC client, they access through the proxy, the storage. So that is perfectly supported. And that's how existing customer plug the F series. Now, if you have maybe an Ethernet environment, or you start from scratch, we will probably design more a full Ethernet blown solution in 100 gigabit connectivity. So in that case, all our backend or front-end connectivity are LAN addresses. The NVMe F series will be connected in 100 gig, as I was saying, through either RDMA protocol to some OS which are supporting that protocol. So Linux and Windows today only support RDMA, I would say, protocol directly, just like I would say see this as like a kind of SAN client, and other protocol which do not support or which require lower bandwidth requirements are can still access, I would say, the traditional nearline storage or the F-series storage through the proxy servers with our NAS client and DLC client. So two different ways to address. Of course, upgrade path is capable to be done in the future if required. So those are typical, I would say, architecture. But now let's look at what we already implemented, because we already implemented the solution. So I have 3 use case roughly to present. Those are customer which are already StorNext customer. This first customer really is there to ingest and digitalize content to restore, I would say, movies and film production. So they are capturing all this as a very high resolution format. So the problematic was that all this content that is ingested really needs high quality checking. So 10 to 15% of the ingested content in high resolution need that to be rendered for quality check. So if we done that on nearline storage, you would kind of create a bottleneck for the other user which are working on the other contents. So they decided, of course, either to increase their nearline storage, so add more spindle, high cost of adding all these spindle together, just put a small F1000 box, I think of 70 terabyte, with that 25 gig read capability to stream one or multiple stream at the same time by the rendering. So you can see the iRes is the 4K DPX 16-bit. So that was requiring high performance. I think the performance they were getting on one stream was roughly 6 gigaseconds in some case. So you can see the box is really performance even on a single stream. So solution, as I was saying, deploying the F1000 on the existing, we created a pool called the fast pool. The Stripe groups which were on the nearline, we create them as a near pool storage, and they are using a GUI-based application inside StorNext 7 to what we call promote the data. That means the 4K content, which is on the nearline pool, is promoted. So it's copied. It's not a cut and paste. It's a copy and paste to the fast pool. But since it's a global file system, I would say the path is not changing, and the rendering are reading like crazy the data from the NVMe. And when those are finished, we do what we call a demote. So if the data has not changed, we just instantaneously remove it from the NVMe, because the data, the original data, is still on the nearline, but is hidden, I would say. So we just remove it very quickly and put the hidden data on the nearline back available for the other users if required. So that is done very quickly. So all this makes sure that we are also saving time when they do all this work. We're not creating any more bottlenecks, because the rendering are really working only on the NVMe, and the other guys which are doing the color, the editing or reviewing and restoring the films are really working on the nearline storage. So that was really a nice win. And if you need more information, yeah, feel free to come. The second use case is typically a post-production house in the animation, okay? And animation, what they need to do, you know, that is 3D rendering. And they really need to increase their bandwidth, because they have won many projects, and they're increasing also their render farm servers. So today they have roughly 30 servers, and they will increase. So they really add the same requirements. I need more bandwidth. I need more power for the rendering of the 3D. And of course, I want a minimum of latency problematic. So same thing, workflow, yeah, they are using a different type of software, 4D with Arnold Inside plugin or Maya, depending on the type of scene that they are working on. The renderer servers, the issue we had when we were looking at those, when they only had the nearline storage, that at some point in time when they were working, more than 20,000 files were open. that was creating a huge stress on the nearline storage. So of course, as we spoke about IOPS, and especially random IOPS, the best is to move to the NVMe technology. So we deploy an F1000. Here it will be NAS connected, so it's really IP-based connected directly. That gave them directly a lot of speed for the rendering, but also their application, like I said on the previous slide, when you move around the data, even it's moving from one stripe group to another stripe group, as a global namespace file system, the UNC path is still the same. You know, we're just working with the inodes behind the scene, but for the application, for the user, everything is completely transparent. And that was one of the key requirements. They want to have tiering and pooling from one storage to the other, but they want to keep the same UNC path. So that was one of the benefit of the solution. And of course, as I was saying, you're using NVMe disk, so that is an Autobahn. You can really have as many, I would say, thousands and thousands open files at the same time, which really was key for these people. And once all this has been rendered and the frame has been rendered, and we had some values, some frames were from 2 minutes up to 20 minutes to create a frame. The frame is directly written, I would say, to the nearline storage below, so people can do, I would say, the editing or reviewing work, which requires less workflow. So that's also a nice use case that we can leverage. The other one is a use case which Trams, that's why I put the Trams logo, has done. So it's a big media broadcaster, but working this part on the post-production side. And of course, like we say, these guys were already using StorNext, but with 4K. And now they're moving and scoping now to 8K workflow, and they think about what's next. So they really needed higher performance because their nearline storage was, I would say, starting to be too small in terms of performance. As we say, we could have increased those QXS controllers to increase performance, but directly that increased the cost because you need many, many spindles to match the requirements. So here in that solution, it's a little bit different from the other one. So we have added 2F1000. And as you can see, the different type of application that they are using, Flame, Resolve, Creative Cloud, are managed by roughly 20 Mac clients. And the Mac clients basically have access to those two file systems. So it's a different philosophy. They're not using, I would say, the traditional pooling system. So each, I would say, this technology adds its own file system. The content is ingested on the system and exported through those Macs between those two type of storage. And in that case, the user will know where to go when he's working on a typical application to have the maximum of performance. Now, for lower performance workflows, such as just reviewing or browsing the content, they go through the traditional NAS DLC clients. So different approach, but they really are meeting their performance criteria. On top of that, they also needed, I'm a little bit offside the topic, but they needed also the protection of the system. As you know, within StorNext, you can auto-protect or copy the data using StorNext Manager to tape to cloud object storage, but they decided to leverage our StorNext FlexSync replication. So they have another StorNext file system on a data room, which is a little bit more far away in a different building, and they replicate all their content on those two file systems to that offsite facility. Before they were using rsync, but with scripting, manual process, that to clean it up. Here with FlexSync, everything is done, I would say, on the schedule base. It's completely automatic. And also regarding all the accessibility and security, it's better managed, especially around all the ACLs. I don't know if I missed something because this is a tram, I would say, use case. It has been handled by Declan. I know he's on the line, but he is also working. Declan, do you want to say something more about this?
Yeah, the advantage is that, as you've mentioned in your slide, it carries over all the ACLs. So in we can drop straight to the lower performance disaster file system, so people continue to work, albeit at a lower performance rate. The F1000s were picked because the workflow allows us to back up that F1000 data to the disaster file system, but also benefit from the speed and the performance at a decent price for the performance. So we can do a very high random I/O for DPX sequences in the NVMe storage, while still having the backup that we would want by pushing across to the disaster file system.
Okay, thank you. So you can see we have I would say, brand new maybe products, maybe brand new feature of integration, but we already have some use case which are deployed, working, and especially, as Dan has said, they can demo virtually. They have a system in their lab, so of course they can demo virtually this and show you how all this is working together if required. Now, if we look a little bit about how all this has been in the GUI, so maybe some of you are still with StorNext. I'm not going to say 5, but we still have customers with StorNext 5 or StorNext 6. With StorNext 7, you have what we call a unified GUI. So how does it look like? Either you can toggle between white and black if you want. And within that GUI, you can see it's a complete dashboard. You can really see now all the type of peripheral that you have inside the GUI. So on the top left, I can see my F series, my H series, so the H2000 just released, the QXS, the new HCI, which will come later, all the different MDC. So all the MDCs can be unified into one GUI if you have multiple StorNext file system, and everything related to the service. And when I say the service, it can be the FlexSync replication, like this previous use case, and all the management regarding the NAS cluster and especially the pool. So is how do we create a pool? So we just go in the pool tab, which is I would say identified by a small logo, which is a ladder in the pool. And there you can see already maybe the existing stripe groups which are affected to the pool with a name. So you just click on the create a pool. You can see the stripe groups which are available to you. So you choose the stripe groups, you give a name to the pool. So here it's called Fast Dan, and you create that pool, and it directly pops in as a pool. So very simple. And you can see also the capacity which is being used at this moment on each of these pools, and you can even go dive deeper to understand what data you have on these pools as well through web service or APIs. So those are the pool created. After that, as I said, you need to create different ways. You can create a job. So you can create the job which will be executed right away, or you can create a job with maybe a scheduler saying it will be executed tonight. So I have my content available tomorrow morning when I want to work on it. And if it's not a job, in that case, you create a policy, and a policy is a job, but with a recurrent task, maybe every hour, every day, every week, whatsoever. So different philosophy in terms of scheduling. Anyway, the purpose is to open that job, and when you need to create a job, first is to select what you want to do. What is the task? And I was speaking about, I was giving some words saying copy, moving, promote, demote. So here's a kind of a little bit the definition. When I move the data, really it's a cut and paste. So I can really say I'm moving the data from one pool to the other. So this is really the cut and paste, I would call it, feature. Of course, when we move around the data, we are running checksum and validating the checksum to make sure there's the data has not been modified and it's really the true data. So all this, of course, is checksum. Now the promote or demote or remove, I would say the promote is the copy paste. That means I will copy the data from one pool, maybe the slow pool, to the fast pool, and the copy on the nearline data, so the slow pool, will be hidden, and the active, I would say, version is available on the fast pool, which is the NVMe. So if one of the example where the guys were just doing a quality check, there's no modification. So of course, we're taking a little bit of time to copy the data. But once the data has been read, for example, the quality check, either we do a demote or we do directly a remove because we know that the workflow is just to read. So we do a remove and we just recover right away the space on the NVMe, and the hidden copy just becomes active. So we gain time in all those movements. So if it's a few gigabyte, it does not matter, but in some case, one movie can be a 15 terabyte, 20 terabytes. So if you have to move it back, it may take some time. So it's a nice feature to have that promote, demote, remove functionality. As I said, you can see in each pool what type of files and the names of the file by creating some inventory, just to understand what is in those Stripe groups and pool. So those are, I would say, the first thing. You create a task, you define what you need to put on that task. The next one is, yeah, I need to move the data, but what type of data? So for that, you have predefined criterias. Those can be related to the size of the data, the age of the data when it has been, for example, accessed for the last time, the location of the data, you exactly know the path. So you can say that directory, promote all the files of that directory to that pool, or after that, for the most, I would say, funky guys, you have all the regular expression, so you can do whatever you want with the regular expression to move the data and the content. So that is based on the criteria. And as I said, after that, you can initially do it right away or schedule based. So you have the job view, you have a report. We know that everything has been moved from which pool to what other pool, how many files are there. So everything anyway is trace, I would say, for audit logging into the file system. So we know exactly what has been done as well from a security perspective on the file system. That was the job. We can see, okay, you have a dashboard. You can see all the different jobs. You have the same type of dashboard. If I'm doing, I would say, a policy-based, as I was saying, it's a job, but with a recurrent task form. So you can create the same thing and have the same dashboard technology. So really, ease of use of that technology. So recap, through the GUI, as we've seen, CLI, APIs may be done by the MAM behind the scene, and pretty soon just by the click right button with the Open File Manager feature. So in terms of conclusion, yeah, we know that the F-Series really is there to ingest and process, I would say, very high resolution content. And we saw that in each of the use case, the people wanted to increase, I would say, the performance, especially around rendering and managing many open files. So that is also the key features. Everything related to random IOPS performance to increase their productivity, because all these post-production houses are competing also against each other. They are working on contract tenders. So to increase the productivity of your team, you need to have an ecosystem which is very powerful to increase also your business activity. So that is one of the key features. Of course, other, I would say, data center green requirements make sure that this technology really reduce the footprint of the hardware. So you also have less hardware to manage. It's less complex also because we are maybe more going towards an IP-based technology, so it's less complex to the legacy, maybe SAN architecture. So that also reduce the cost of all the architecture implementation, the maintenance cost, and the knowledge cost of the team. So you simplify and reduce all that. And of course, all this technology, as you've seen, is completely now embedded within StorNext, within the GUI, so you can really do nice things of moving around the data. We saw that the use case of Trams is different. If the customer still wants to have a different architecture with dedicated space and manage the data by himself or his own application, he can do it as well. But really a nice integration with that system pool.